When you ask most people what their favorite Star Trek movie is, their response will usually be The Wrath of Khan from 1982, though I'm sure some will inevitably have a different opinion on that. However, if you were to ask me which of the movies captured the essence of Star Trek the best, I would have to say the very first one, Star Trek the Motion Picture. Now, before you run to the comments to tell me I'm crazy, please let me explain. Because I'm not saying that the motion picture is the best movie, just that it best represents what Star Trek is at its very core. And before I get into it, I would just like to warn you that there will be spoilers ahead for Star Trek the Motion Picture, and maybe some minor ones for a few episodes of the original TV series as well. So if there's anything you don't want ruined, you should probably be on the lookout. You have been warned. Okay, so to start off, I feel that the best way to get my point across is to go by my own experiences with Star Trek. And with that being said, I know that some have said that the director's cut is better than the theatrically released version, but since I have never seen the director's cut, this video will only be pertaining to the original theatrically released movie. Alright, so with all of that out of the way, Star Trek the Motion Picture was the first thing of any Star Trek media I had ever seen. And my general consensus was it was very boring. I had a hard time keeping track of the characters. I didn't know the ship was called the Enterprise, so I kept getting confused every time it was mentioned, and the plot was just way too slow for me. So while I didn't hate it, I still wasn't a huge fan of it and found myself enjoying the sequels much more. However, after I watched the original Star Trek TV series, I went back and watched all of the movies with the original cast again, and though I still found it somewhat boring, I found myself appreciating the motion picture a lot more. And it wasn't just because I understood the characters and certain things much better, or that I now knew that the Enterprise was the name of the ship, but because it just felt like the embodiment of Star Trek put on screen for all to see. In short, this movie was Star Trek at its very core. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, if you go back and watch the original Star Trek TV show, you'll quickly find what some of the most prominent themes in the series were. The exploration of space, the discovery of all sorts of unknowns, and most importantly, where man belongs in it all, and how we will handle and react to such discoveries. Basically, Star Trek was about an idyllic future where man explores the cosmos, but finds at every turn that there is still much for us to learn, and it's up to the wisdom of the crew of the Enterprise to decide what we should and shouldn't do regarding these discoveries. And though they may not always follow regulations, they take these responsibilities very seriously and always make sure to do the right thing in the end, even if it's not always the most conventional solutions they come up with. And all of that is so heavily present in Star Trek the Motion Picture that some have even called it just a feature length episode of the TV series. And I wouldn't say that's too far off, though, as I've already mentioned, I personally say that this is the closest you can get to seeing Star Trek in its purest form because it's all there. The exploration, the discoveries of the unknown, the questions, the existentialism, the creative solutions to their problems, the wisdom of the decisions they make. It takes everything the series was known for and perfectly translates it on screen. Even certain ideas are lifted directly from the show, such as a lost machine being changed and trying to find its creator, only to now have a warped idea of who that creator is, or having an extremely powerful force possess a woman and love influencing the final outcome. Or Captain Kirk worrying heavily about being replaced as captain, which causes him to make some rather impulsive decisions. And I think this mostly comes down to the fact that this was the only movie that the series creator Gene Roddenberry had a large role in the making of. Now, there is some debate over how much credit Roddenberry really deserves when it comes to Star Trek, but from everything I've ever seen, especially in the TV show, he was a major creative force behind the scenes and oversaw the writing and even filming of many episodes. But no matter how much he was personally involved, nobody can deny that the core themes of Star Trek that I mentioned earlier tie directly back to him. Because the thing was, Roddenberry was what's known as a humanist, which means that he wasn't concerned with religion or even the past, but where we were going. In other words, a humanist is a person whose only focus is where mankind is heading in the future and figuring out how we'll reach certain milestones that they believe we're destined to reach. And all of that is what makes up the foundation of Star Trek. Basically, it was Roddenberry's ideal vision of the future, where we thrive and manage to majorly improve our world, but still have many more obstacles to face on a much wider scale. But going along with Roddenberry's optimism, we always manage to prevail in the end. And that's exactly what the show was made of, and was most prominently depicted in Star Trek the motion picture. And another thing Roddenberry was very into was philosophy, which was another thing the show would often delve into. But it's in the motion picture that his ideas, theories, and questions really show through. However, just because the movie is essentially Star Trek in its purest form and quite honestly cuts right to the heart of everything it was about, doesn't mean it was the best movie. Because I will be the first to admit, even for Star Trek fans, it's a bit boring, and some of the concepts introduced are just a bit too complex and confusing to really get your head around and appreciate. Which is unfortunate, because had its ideas just been executed better, it really could have been a great movie. In many ways, you can almost say that Star Trek the Motion Picture is like the Star Wars prequels, the embodiment of everything their respective franchises are, but not their best movies overall. However, just like with the Star Wars prequels, the motion picture also has its good points. The characters are all very well done, and exactly where you'd expect them to be from where the show ended. And it does have some great scenes, such as the sequence in the wormhole, the part where V'ger's beam of light shows up and nobody has any idea how to react to it, or when Spock goes inside of her and ponders what exactly it is. But of course, one of the best has to be the reintroduction of the Enterprise as the movie's triumphant theme plays. Seriously, nobody can say that this movie isn't worth some merit. Because it definitely is Star Trek. And as I just said, it has its good moments, and even a great story to back it up. But its troubled production and maybe even Roddenberry's insistence on going so deep into the philosophy certainly didn't do it any favors. Now, as far as the characters go, I honestly feel that I just said everything that there was to say before. I could go on this whole speech about how the movie cuts to the heart of Captain Kirk, but the thing is, I feel that every Star Trek movie, with the possible exception of The Voyage Home, cuts to the heart of him. And they all manage to do it in different but no less effective ways. But to stick to the topic of the motion picture, I do think that it nails the characters. Basically, they feel like these are the same characters from the TV show. Not just because they're being played by the same actors, but because they're acting exactly how you'd expect them to. Which is only another reason why this movie, more than any other, captures the essence of Star Trek. So, to sum it all up, Star Trek the Motion Picture may not be the best Star Trek movie, but it's the one that best represents what Star Trek was. It's everything the TV show embodied from its themes, concepts, and philosophies. And had more time been given to complete the script, and had there not been so much friction between Roddenberry and the studio, it could have been executed a lot better. However, I still believe that most Star Trek fans can appreciate this movie for what it is and understand what it was trying to be. And at the end of the day, you can never really get another Star Trek movie that's so Star Trek in its purest form. But that still doesn't mean the movie's perfect, though at the same time, it really doesn't have to be. Sure, it's a bit boring, and its themes are a little too out there, but I just don't think that's enough to diminish its good points. And listen, you are free to disagree with me on that and hate the movie if you wish, but I firmly believe that this movie still warrants some praise, if only for giving us a movie based off a beloved TV series that tried to be everything that the series was, to the point that it came to embody it better than anything else before or since, even if it came at the sake of its overall quality. Like I said, it's definitely not the best Star Trek movie, but it is the essence of Star Trek. Okay, that's pretty much everything I have to say on that. So now it's your turn to tell me. Do you believe that Star Trek the motion picture represents Star Trek in its purest form, even if it's not the best movie? Or do you believe it's an overly long and boring mess? Please feel free to discuss your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, if you disagree with me, that's fine. I understand that Star Trek is a very long-standing franchise with many different groups of fans, and you are just as entitled to your opinion on it as me or anybody else. And finally, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all next time.